With the situation in Syria rapidly devolving and reports of new massacres emerging almost daily, the chances of military action by Western governments do appear to be mounting to some extent. The death toll in cities across the country continues to climb, with some estimates putting the number killed at nearly 15,000, and the majority of those killed being civilians, according to many human rights groups. In response to recent atrocities, British Foreign Secretary William Hague has said his government wouldn't rule out the possibility of armed military intervention, and he compared the current situation in Syria to that of Yugoslavia in the 1990s, at a time when sectarian violence tore the country apart. However, United Nations Security Council veto holders Russia and China have both recently reaffirmed their opposition to any outside military intervention in Syria. China is particularly vociferous in opposing what it sees as interference in the domestic affairs of other countries, a stance in line with its frequent complaints about US interference in China's internal affairs. And as a permanent member of the UN Security Council, along with Russia, it is in a position to at least block any United Nations use of force. However, it has also said it does not plan to protect the current president, Bashar al-Assad, from the ongoing insurgency, saying instead that the conflict should be resolved by Syrians themselves. So what do Chinese net users make of the ongoing conflict between the Syrian army and those who aim to overthrow the government, and the consequences and misery for the Syrian people? Well, for the answers, let's turn to the newsroom now, where our researcher Esther Dung has been keeping an eye on what's being said. Okay, Esther, many Chinese media outlets are reporting day to day on the situation in Syria. So what about net users? Are they giving much attention to this conflict?
Well, according to what I have found on the internet, I have to say many net users seem interested in the recent developments, despite it being a little far away from people's everyday life. Many net users see the current situation in Syria becoming more and more complicated. This poster from SoHu.com is one of them. See? Just look at the situation in Syria now. I think sooner or later the president will finally step down. But the point is that even if he does step down, could it really stop the conflict in Syria? I'm not so sure about that. And this poster from 163.com just shows his concerns for the Syrian people. He says, "All wars are fought for the interest of a few, and no matter who wins, the ordinary people will still be seen as props in this game." While this poster, Jia Yin, has a warning based on the fate of another Arab leader. It seems these political issues follow their own rules. Do you still remember Gaddafi? I think I already know what will happen to Assad. However, this poster is a little dissatisfied with the Western countries' stance. Okay, I also admit that Syria indeed needs some reform, but that should be done by Syrians themselves. Why do these Western countries always interfere in these issues? It's not their business. Finally, this poster has this question. First it was Libya, now it's Syria. Why does China always have a good relationship with these kinds of countries?
Okay, Esther, this conflict in Syria has been going on for quite some time now, but it did arise quite suddenly, if not out of the blue. In terms of reasons behind this, what do Chinese net users have to say?
Well, I have to say I'm a little surprised at how much research some posters seem to have done into the root causes of the conflict. The most common causes I'm seeing posted include a huge bureaucracy, the unequal distribution of power, and the long role of one family. In this poster's opinion, the current conflict is just an inevitable result of the government's failures. Why has the government survived for so long? That's because they promised that they would provide a stable, equal, and free society to the Syrian people. But it seems that they have failed to fulfill the promises, and the public obviously demands a change. And this poster from SoHu.com brings up the recent killings. See? Although the Syrian government keeps claiming that they don't start clashes, what's more important is that if a government can't protect its own people, then how can they expect to get support from these people? While this poster from 163.com talks about the economic and religious aspects of the conflict, and says, who is the main force behind the conflict? These young Syrians. The Syrian economy is too reliant on one industry, which has put this country's economy far behind other countries in the Middle East. And these unemployed youth, of course, would turn their dissatisfaction toward the government. And besides this, the long unsolved religious contradictions just make the situation worse. Finally, there is one more reason listed by another poster, also from Sohu.com, saying, although people always claim that the force behind the current president is united, in my opinion, ever since he became president, internal contradictions have existed. In fact, some politicians don't give any support to this young leader's decision. Under such attack from both the inside and outside, the president's life can't be easy.
Now, many observers and diplomats in the region are warning that all-out civil war now seems, if not inevitable, certainly very probable. Is that a view shared by China's online community?
Actually, it seems that most net users are still not so sure about the final outcome. And a lot of them see the current situation lasting for a long time yet. First, this comment posted by Yuye Jixing. I don't think the U.S. government is against overthrowing the current Syrian regime. But the key point is that currently President Obama has another important issue to deal with, the presidential election. I really don't think he would risk his re-election for a war. And this poster, Tian Wenlin, a researcher on international relations, also suggests that intervention is not a good idea to break the current situation. And he says, maybe the Western countries think that they can profit from overthrowing the current Syrian government. But in my opinion, the results would be worse if we look at it from a long-term view, since the geographic location of Syria is quite sensitive. Military intervention would upset the balance of power in the region and even lead to an increase in terrorism. In my opinion, the Western countries should think this through some more. Finally, this poster, 耕读持家, seemed to be broadly behind the stand of Chinese and Russian governments in urgent caution. Intervention by Western countries may ease the conflict in the short term, but it won't solve the problems that currently exist. I think what they should do is urge the current Syrian government to solve the problems first, and then let the Syrian people decide for themselves who should stay and who should resign.
Okay, thanks for looking into that for us, Esther. And that was China Take researcher Esther Dung with views from China's online community to that ongoing conflict in Syria. Next here on China Take, some of the top trending phrases on China's most popular search engines. Let's see what's got Chinese net users curious these days.